Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lara Briceño Salomon, and I have the pleasure of sharing this space with three of our distinguished alumni who serve on our alumni board of directors. We're very excited to host this panel as we hear from them about what it's like after graduating from FIU and how they navigated through their early years of their careers. We'll also have a Q&A open during our conversation, so feel free to send any questions our way, and if we have time at the end, we'll answer a few of them. So to get us started, we'll have some brief introductions, starting with Gina, then Armand, and then Alex.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gina Duarte Romero. I am a proud two-time alumni of FIU. My bachelor's degree was in 1991 with my bachelor's degree in special ed, and then I graduated with a master's in early childhood. I own and run the Biltmore School in Miami, Florida. It's an international baccalaureate school. And I'm also an adjunct professor at FIU, and I've been invited to present at conferences and I love what I do, and I love being a part of FIU. So I'm happy to be here and joining you guys. Armand?
Thank you, Gina. Armand Aru, I am on the executive board with Gina as well as Alex Cook, who's on the call as well. I have been doing this PAW since it started. I love coming back and giving my story because it's a little unorthodox versus the traditional one. So I'd like to share some of that with all of you as well. And yep, I've been in class of 2009. I went to school for finance, and I've never worked in the finance industry. So that's where I'll leave it at from here. Alex.
Thank you, Armand. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little moving around. I'm just opening I'm going back to my family's restaurants. So unfortunately, as everything goes unplanned, today's moving day. Originally, I was supposed to be in a nice setting, but I'm happy to be here, as well as double alumni, undergrad and graduate from the wonderful Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. Again, I've been in the industry all my life, still working it as most of my fellow board members as well. We're glad to be here and support and get back to the university. And we love FIU, and we're all about FIU. I also sometimes adjunct as a professor for the school, teaching restaurant management, culinary, and just hospitality.
Thank you so much, everyone. So let's jump right in. This is a question directed for everybody. What are some of the biggest surprises you encountered during your first few years after college, and how did you adapt to them? Whoever wants to start.
You want to go in the same order, Gina, or Alex,
Okay.
if you want to?
Okay. So when I graduated, I went into teaching. I taught for Dade County schools, and that it was an inner city school, and it was a powerful learning experience. And then that gave me the tools to open my own preschool, which turned into a school. So that was I feel like all of my experiences gave me the strength to go on to other experiences. So I guess that was the biggest surprise of how, I wouldn't say smooth, but how things evolved.
So from my end, I was in school studying finance in 2006 through 9. So the whole financial industry crashed and burned at that time. So it was kind of a difficult time to be coming out with a finance degree. I was lucky enough to pivot towards logistics and customs brokerage. So I went in to that whole field in Doral, which is a big field with the airport there. I worked there for a few years coming out of school. So that was my first curveball. And then things changed from there into the insurance industry for time management as far as having time for family versus work. So within my first handful of years out of school, it was a change from thinking I'm going to be in the financial industry in New York to working in Doral at a logistics and customs brokerage to then going into insurance, which is where I'm in today in that industry as well.
I think that the first year, some of the biggest shockers weren't too bad because the school requires us to do internships, and we're already immersed into the industry very much. But any issues that came up or anything, really, the school has always been supportive, and that's why I think we're all here. We all love FIU because FIU doesn't end when we leave the walk across that stage and get the diploma. FIU is still here for us, and we're still a huge resource for anything and everything, from media to legal to financial. I mean, I talked to Armand about my finances. Actually, he sold me my life insurance. That's the network we have. If I'm teaching in the educational help, of course, there's Gina. So again, the network that we have and support from FIU has really prepared, myself for after college. The only thing was actually, getting up 9 to 5 every 5 days a week now. That was a little hard, and not having, Chick-fil-A on campus. So, but besides that, it was great.
The second question I have for you guys is how did you handle the imposter syndrome when you started out in a competitive industry?
So for me, when I bought my first preschool, I was all of a sudden I became a director, and I had been used to being a teacher, and it was, all of a sudden it was that shift. And I just, I tried to do as much research as I could. I tried to go to different early childhood programs. I'm going to piggyback on Alex's comments. FIU is a great resource. So of course I went back, and actually that's where I connected with Dr. Salmon, who was my mentor, and she pushed me along. So I think that's going to be kind of like a resonating theme of how FIU has supported, like Alex said, it supported me as well. And I speak for Armand. I know that it's been, a big part of our professional careers.
From my perspective, switching to insurance from logistics and being a finance major had nothing to do with each other. So I went right into sales, and the way that I got through that was figuring out who was the most successful salespeople and attaching myself to their hip as much as I could. So big recommendation for anybody looking at changing fields: see who's really successful at what they're doing, at what you're doing, see if personalities match, and see if they'd be willing to take on like that mentorship or just let you tag along. I would be in Miami Beach at 7 a.m. for a meeting at a building going up that's insurance related, and then being back in the office in Miami Lakes with somebody else, going to Fort Lauderdale, all in the same day. So I would say you just have to use your time wisely, but attach yourselves to the right people that are already doing what you're trying to do very successfully.
I agree with Armand. You got to do your research and really not be afraid to learn, to make mistakes, and to watch others who are successful, talk to them, and even work for a company who's not doing well, because then you learn what not to do. But it's really the grind, and you're here to still learn and learn the trade, learn from the best, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you find yourself in an environment where it's not supportive of that and there's no growth, then don't be afraid to change. Change is always very hard, very scary, but that's where growth is.
I have a follow-up for that specific question. Do you suggest vocalizing when you're unsure about something, or fake it till you make it mentality? Is that the way to go?
Well, I think kind of a blend. I think it's important to, ask for clarification. I'm a big part of that. And I, like with my FIU students, I'm always, making sure that they feel comfortable and safe, that they can ask questions. But in some cases, you do have to fake it till you make it, and just push through.
I guess it's how you define fake it till you make it. But in my opinion is always be your true form. If something's not meant for you, if the industry's not for you, there's really no way to fake your way through it. You have to like, I truly believe in liking what you do and not doing what you're doing just for a paycheck. Because like I said, I've been there in one industry, and insurance has been a lot nicer to me, but I feel like I've been a better fit for this industry in this type of position where it's sales based, not so analytical at a desk. So that's my take on it. As far as fake it till you make it, I think, at least if I'm looking at a different route, it's the tag yourself to somebody, like I said again, that's already been successful, and make sure, hey, I know this person, this is who I'm with, this is who I'm working with, so you can kind of piggyback off of the size of the business, things like that, as far as until you have the expertise, right? Until you're that valuable resource to them as well.
I would say you have to see who you're talking to. If you're talking to the media, you want to sort of tell the truth, and it's always. I'd like to always say it's what you say, it's how you say it. You don't want to come off not knowing, but sometimes you do to land the job. It's not that serious of a question. I've always been taught you don't have to know all the answers, but you should have a network who you can ask. Perfect example is one of my friends was doing an event, and the person's like, we need a satellite connection for the event. Can you move a satellite for us? And she's like, she knew she couldn't move a satellite, but she knew who she could call to move a satellite. So she said yes, and it's always okay to say, hey, I don't know, but I will find out. But the fact that you're honest and you're honest that you will actually go do your best and follow up and find out, that should speak volumes and coming back and make sure you follow up. And to Armand's point, we all say, okay, make sure you're doing something that it's not just for the paycheck, it's something that you love. It's hard once you get into an industry, once you get settled, you have a family. It's hard to make that shift, make that switch. Should I not? Stability. But really, again, it's when it's hard, that's when you learn, and when you want to make that's the time to make that switch. Don't be afraid to make that change, and to lean back on your fellow friends and FIU again to be there for you. And you don't. It doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. Hi, do we have an upgrade to the suite level, or hi, do you have any space in first class? Because the worst case they tell you is just no, we don't. It's fun.
I just wanna drive something home that both you, Alex, and Armand touched upon. I heard somebody told me once, when you find love in the things that others consider tedious or work or like heavy, that's when you know you found your vocation. So with that, and thankfully Alex brought up on it, what are some common mistakes that you guys see new graduates make when it comes to networking, and how can we avoid them?
When it comes to networking, I think that it's important to first of all find those opportunities, because there's so many opportunities out there, especially in South Florida. And the other thing is dress for the part, but when you have those opportunities, make sure that you are there and you are present, and not on your phone, and just really, really present. That would be the best recommendation I would give.
My 2 cents on that question, because I saw it coming based on networking, and that's what we've all done to get here, is I don't think graduates do it enough, and I don't think it's consistent enough. Going to one FIU event, for example, and talking to two people and sitting in the corner with somebody else you already know. I've seen plenty of that by, championing the Broward network for years, and that's just not enough. So I would say get out of your comfort zone, go everywhere. The ones that don't fit, you scratch them out. Like if you go to network after work in this place and you just don't like the vibes, you don't like the crowd, just scratch that one off. Don't go to it again, but you have to at least book some time for yourself. It's almost like sales, right? You're selling yourself at networking. You're pitching your 30-second elevator pitch to every single person you walk in front of. And if you do like a board, for instance, like how I got onto the Broward board, and you feel like you can be of value quickly, make sure they know why you can be of value, because the quicker you get on that board, the quicker you get a position, the quicker you can be the one at the events that people want to come talk to. So that's what worked for me through the FIU network, but it was definitely through, talking to Alex Cook was a big part of it. But again, if I didn't approach him and I just sat in a corner at all these events and all, it wouldn't have done me any well. So I would definitely say do it more often, and, get out of your comfort zone and just be yourself. Talk to as many people as you can while you're there.
I would say that, when graduates, it's not more of a mistake, but it's sort of I look at one time I was listening to Oprah, and she was saying when she interviews people at the end of the interview, people always, once they say, okay, we're done, the person will turn to her and go, how did I do? And it could be a president, it could be a pop star, anyone. So when you go into a network, you always feel like, oh, like Gina's point, am I dressed okay? Do I have the right shoes and socks on? Do I have the right resume? Do I have the right personality? My hair okay? Listen, put all that aside. You are you. Have confidence in who you are. Everyone in the room is nervous just as you are. Walk in there with confidence, like Armand. In this case, you fake it till you make it. Even if you don't know the answer, you might. I'm curious, and you want to learn more about that person. And I think that sometimes people are afraid to not know what to say, and you have the awkward silence and everything. And don't forget, everyone's favorite word is what? Their own name. Okay, when you come to a bar, you go to a restaurant, hospitality. What makes hospitality hospitality? You come in and, hey, Armand, how you doing? Good to see you again. It makes the person feel special. So if you have nothing to talk about, you always want to ask about the other person. Hey, what do you do? Where are you from? Where do you go to school? What line of work do you do? There's all those wonderful questions to talk, keep that conversation going, I would say. But yeah, to Armand's point, dress well for the part, and to make yourself, to go out there and do it. Don't be afraid that, any thoughts you may have. Just go out there, be yourself, have a great time, but definitely network, because network really is a success. It's about what you know, but it's also about who you know. Sometimes that can get things moving.
And this is something that I want to ask you now. So when talking about authenticity and being yourself, how can students and graduate effectively network and connect with others in their field while staying true to themselves?
I would say be honest. Be like, listen, I'm a recent graduate. I would like to get. It's also, here's another very hard thing. This is a very hard thing for me personally. It's like, what do you want? What do you want to do? And for like restaurants, is it you want to do front of the house, back of the house? You want to do operations? You want to do sales? And once you have that goal, that is your North Star. So you can also be very, like what Armand said, find the people who do it well and be very honest with them. Hi, I'm just graduating from FIU. I would love to learn more about how I can better myself. Can we, grab coffee, grab lunch, get that contact, follow up? There's a fine line, of course, between following up and being overly bearing. But be very honest and say, hey, I'm a recent graduate. I love what you do. I admire how you do it, and would love to get to know you and how to better get on that track. And there's a lot of people out there that are willing to mentor if you just ask. There's some people that aren't, and okay, gotta find a different way around it. But it's persistence. For example, we know of a company down here who wanted to get in with the company. Eventually, they somehow found out where the CEO, what time the CEO was going to get on a flight, and they booked the seat right next to them and got on there. So it's persistence, and it's being honest.
Does anybody else want to add anything?
Gina, Armand.
I would just piggyback on what both Alex and Armand said. One of the things that Armand said was, being true to yourself in the sense of, if you get to a networking place that doesn't work for you, then that's not don't go back there again. But again, FIU has so many networking opportunities that there's lots to choose from.
I will touch on one piece, since you're speaking of in the same industry. Me networking through FIU and meeting a broker, which is Leandro, who was on the Broward board, led me to a guy named Mike Reyes, who ended up being my partner in my insurance agency that we sold a couple years ago. But if I wasn't, in that position and speaking to people that are in the industry and not feeling like, oh, they're going to steal your business or whatever it is, practices, it's more, you need to be able to get along with people in your same industry, in networking events or not, whether you're competing for the same clients or not. You'll be able to feel out who you can or can't trust, I guess I would say, in any industry. So I think that would just go back to just being yourself, knowing who to talk to. Like Alex said, certain people are not going to want to mentor you, or not going to be the right people for you. The same thing with a career choice. You might go into a job and it might be the right career and it might not be the right boss. So same kind of, answer there. You'll know, you should know pretty quickly if you're in a good place in a conversation or a job.
And as a follow-up to a point that you were making, does it have to be a networking event? Because sometimes I even feel like it's hard to find those opportunities. Like, thankfully, FIU has, like Gina was mentioning, thankfully FIU has a lot of opportunities, but in the professional field, it does get more difficult to find them. So what do you do? What do you suggest to fix this? Like,
I suggest reaching right back out to FIU. Again, we have a lawyers board and they have their own networking event. You're talking about within the industry. Let's say you're trying to get into that industry, you're a recent graduate. You'd want to go in a room full of lawyers, right? There's not really an insurance practice per se, but there's different business groups that meet. Gina would be, able to touch on education, hospitality. Alex Cook would be able to touch on, they have their own board. So it's as easy as reaching back out to the Alumni Association and saying, this is what I'm trying to turn into. You know, let's say own a business that's going to be a school. I want to own a school, you know, somehow they would find a way to connect you to whatever board it is, or even directly to Gina. So, I mean, I got my way onto the board by reaching out to who was the sitting president of the Broward board then on LinkedIn. And you know, that's how I got to David. He invited me to a Jazz Fest event that they had, and that's how it all started for me. So I would say FIU is a huge stepping stone towards it, because like for me, I get, I'm sure everybody else can contest to this, hundreds of you know, messages on LinkedIn. And if they didn't go to FIU, to be honest with you, I kind of, those are the only ones that catch my eye through all of the junk that comes in. If I see that they were an FIU graduate, it just catches my eye regardless. I'll look at it. So I would say use LinkedIn, find out who's in charge of these different boards, see who's in charge of the Alumni Association pieces. Because again, we're going to have the biggest heart for FIU grads. And so I would say that would be a good stepping stone for anybody on this call who's obviously, you know, affiliated with FIU.
I agree. And for me, it was um, working with other schools. And through working with other schools, I came in contact with my mentor, Dr. Salman, and she's the one that pushed me to get my master's degree. She's the one that pushed me to do the International Baccalaureate program. And through her support, I have turned around and supported other students. But like Armand was mentioning, our Alumni Association is also really good, because I've gotten calls, you know, from the office saying, "Hey, we have somebody that has some questions," and I'm, you know, all of our board members are always, you know, willing to jump on a call and support fellow alum or soon to graduate students and support them. So it really is a great resource.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the question was if you're in, after you graduate, you're trying to find a professional organization or a network opportunity and you can't find one. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so how do you find it in the professional field?
Um, you know, again, there's so many resources. We've all touched on, Gina and Armand have already touched on them, you know, Googling, and there's a club for everyone now. There's literally there's a certain kind of miniature plant club. I mean, there's a club for everyone, and there's an activity. And you know what? If you don't find a club, just create it. Start it. You know, there's these BMI groups that have started for business and everything, and networking. People always want an opportunity to showcase themselves and network and gain business. So if you create some sort of happy hour, you know, and you start with a small group, one or two, and then you start inviting friends and everything, you can even create your own professional network, you know. Yeah, so don't be afraid to do that. Be the one who starts it.
Gina, since you touched on the topic of mentorship, how can students and graduates seek out mentors, and why should they? So what should a mentor-mentee relationship look like in the early years of one's career?
So how to, you know, I think there's different paths that you can use to find a mentor. I mean, I'm going to go back and mention FIU because that was my route. It's, you know, like, for example, right now I'm getting ready through Dr. Salman. I've continued to work with her, and we've been invited to present at a conference in Greece in May. But having those, you know, those lines of communication open. I mean, now that she has helped me so much, I don't call her every day. There was a time that I would contact her and she would make time out for me. But it's really about creating, first of all, finding somebody that you connect with, that Armand mentioned, somebody that you look up to, obviously. So find that person, you know, again, through where you work, through FIU, through whatever avenue you find, and then create that, you know. And I think clear expectations are really important, you know, creating those, like when I first sat down with my mentor, you know, it seemed so unrealistic to get a master's degree with two young children. I thought that was just such an unrealistic goal, and I was able to do it. So
Anybody else would like to add? So let's move on to the next question. How did you decide that it was time to switch career paths or industries? And what advice do you have for those who may feel uncertain about their current path?
I'll take that one real quick. I think that that's why it's hard to do be the student and also work, but that's what you have to do. Now is your time. And if you're a student or a recent graduate, generally your life um, has less commitments than let's say when Gino said she has 2 kids, family. So at that stage of life is where you go, oh, do I want to try bartending? Do I want to try being a legal assistant? Do I want to try, I mean, anything you want. And also that's in college, you take intros to everything, intro to hospitality, intro to, psychology and astrology, whatever it is, you get a taste of it there, or you go work in the industry and you can see, and again, Armand and Gina said, you have to find the right white kitchen. I worked my second kitchen I worked in, I quit within a week. Actually, I'm sorry, that was the first kitchen I worked in. First kitchen I worked in, I was totally not ready for that kind of restaurant, and I told my chef, I quit. I can't do this. It's too awkward. And then he sent me over to hotel, which actually I was able to hone my skills and everything, and had a little more structure. But to know what kind of structure you need, and it's never easy, but always I have to say be respectful. Give them 2 weeks before you leave, and also have another job lined up before you leave. So
this is where that beginning of my introduction comes in, which is what made me change career paths. So I was pretty set in where I was at, and there was a ladder of who I was taking over for as a CFO in that logistics company. But it was a 24-hour business, and I was working 14 plus hours a day, which was fine when it was just my wife and I. But once she had our first son and I wasn't seeing him, it just drove me crazy. So that was really my turning point, where I said I need to find something much more flexible on a life work balance. And that's how I ended up in insurance. Since you're in sales, right? You got to just go sell, and if you're not selling, you don't get paid. So it's pretty simple. You're working for yourself within your business within a business, as they say. So that was my turning point. And it was kind of just took the leap. It was a tough first, I would say, 2 to 3 years. But like I said, it helped me find an industry that I never thought would be something I'd be into. And now I'm a dozen years in. I've owned an agency, back working within an agency, not even in sales directly anymore. Now I'm director of marketing and like sales strategy. So it's even developed into something even better, where I don't have to go out there selling every day. But it all started from just having that forget this kind of moment where it's like, this is not what I want. I don't want to be working 14 plus hours a day and, not getting to see those few moments that, if anybody, whoever has children on here, Gina could definitely contest to, is those first few years are they come and they go. So again, my kid's going to be 12. So it's been a long journey, but it was due to that moment of life changing my mindset to saying, I need to be here for him. I want to be here for him physically, not just financially. So that was my turning point, and it was just, hey, take the leap and try it. Worst case, you can always go back to what you were doing, is the way I look at it. Maybe not in the same place, but you can always go back with your experience into a similar position, I'm sure.
For me, a lot of things just kind of fell into place. When when we had the opportunity to buy our first preschool, I remember that I was having a conversation with someone, and they were like, well, that's so crazy, buying a preschool. What if it goes belly up? And I said to her, I said, that's never even crossed my mind, because that's just not an option. I had put everything that I had into it, and I said to her very frankly, I said, if this goes belly up, I'm gonna be homeless. So it's just not an option for me. And I, like Armand was saying, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, no weekends, until we made it happen. So I think just plug on through until you make it.
Well, as a follow-up, what were those internal conversations like when you did decide to quit or make that change? Like, a lot of us are really hard on ourselves, but how do you find the courage to go through that? Like how do you motivate yourself to go through that?
I'll start with this one if you don't mind. It's I just spoke about this actually in a class last week. If you are firing or someone, or if you are quitting, it is never personal. It's short and sweet. You are If you're leaving a company, you thank them for all they've done for you, you've done for them. But ultimately, it's the decision that's going to benefit you and your family. And that's the bottom line. It's not, hopefully, it's not malice. Hopefully, it's honest. But it's not personal. I've quit from my own family. I've left. I've left big corporations, small corporations, and it's always never personal. It's what's the right step for you and your journey and your path. And again, if it, like what the panel said, if it doesn't align with that, it's time to go. But sometimes just there's better growth, and remember it is about your life.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's important to have your question about like what is it that kept you going or kept it, like for me it was my children. I knew that I had to make it right for them. So and the option of quitting was never there was never an option. And I think and another thing that I want to add is I think the FIU grit. Like we really, the culture within our university is very, very moving forward, make it happen, you can do it. That model kind of resonates throughout our school.
I'll double down on Gina's. I didn't have any other choice. I had a newborn, I had a house that was, a year into its mortgage. So there's a lot going on that made clear every day why I couldn't just quit and go back on whatever I was doing. So it took a lot of that, and obviously having your support system around you when you feel like, all right, I'm not made for this. I had plenty of days where I said, okay, I can't sell, ice to an Eskimo. I can't sell anything at that point. And, I had those rough moments, and it just took having a support system, whether it's your friends, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your wife, your spouse, or anybody around you, just having somebody that you could trust just to be completely open with, and having that person tell you, hey, come on, yes, you can do it. So I definitely recommend having that support system around you.
Thank you guys for
100%.
sharing. So one of the questions that I also have for you is balancing your career and prioritizing personal goals. How do you do that? Like it looks so overwhelming. It looks so like nerve-wracking at some point because you have to make those decisions like Armand was saying. So how do you suggest we should start focusing there?
My take on that, as I've already mentioned, is I made my career change to have that flexibility, and it comes down to the industry. I mean, if you ask Alex is in the hospitality, don't expect to have any Fridays open. If you want to own a business and a Saturday, right? Those are the times people want to go out. So depending on the industry you choose, just choose wisely, because it could affect what you want as far as your time frame. Mine was having the flexibility to be available to take my kids to school, pick my kids up from school, and go to their soccer and basketball, whatever sport, whatever they're doing. I just want to be able to be available. They have a Christmas show, be able to go for an hour. Now, what does it take? It takes me being constantly available to my clients, constantly answering my phone, texting, emails. You have to balance it. It's a 24-hour business now, right? Everything is. Nobody gets to turn off anymore. So being able to hide the stress, I would say, around it when you're doing the life balance in the case of children, and also having the respectful timeframes of, hey, if you're off, you're off. So if I have, again, kids show, I make it clear, hey, I'm going to be off at this time. It's on my calendar. It's marked. Nobody should be bothering me, and I'm not answering my phone. So I think it's about having that respectful time frame too. Of when you're doing personal stuff, make sure you don't let work overtake it either.
For me, in the beginning, kind of like what Armando was saying, like I had no schedule. It was like, 14-hour days. It was, just, I was in the classroom, I was, helping with, construction, whatever it took. But after, I think it was really important for my mental health and for my family's mental health to create boundaries. And like, for example, I try not to answer emails at night. I try not to, really, really clear boundaries and that I set for myself. And then the other thing that I do, which is kind of the opposite of that, is like when I have, like now for the conference that I'm going to in Greece, I'm taking my daughter and we're going to take a few days, to go. We've never been to Greece, so we're going to take a few days on vacation as well. So I think there needs to be like a blend, but creating that schedule where family time is sacred is really important for me.
I wish you a very, very good trip for that.
Thank you.
So now you know the boundaries of yourself. So how do you suggest outlining those boundaries with a superior or to your job? So like we know our limits, but how do we make sure that the people who are working with also know those limits?
Well, for me, I try to pass that down to my staff. I always, I'll be in the morning, we'll be drinking our coffee here in the office, and they'll be saying, oh, this parent emailed me at 10 o'clock at night. And I always tell them, don't feel obligated to respond to an email at 10 o'clock at night. So I try to lead by example. I think it's really important to again, set those clear boundaries and live by them. Sometimes you have to make an exception. We have our parents' night is at night. So obviously that's an exception to the rule. But for the most part, really try to have those boundaries and have, and have everyone follow that for the most part.
On my end, I've gone from, again, employee to owner to now employee again in a way. Even though in leadership, you're still, right? I have a CEO, I have a president, I have a COO, I still have people I answer to. And what my recommendation from employer or employee is just be honest. The worst thing you can do is say, you're working, or, with this whole remote world that we're in now, and a lot of people are remote working, and say you're working, but you're not, and you're somewhere else. It always comes to light. So my whole thing is be honest. And if your employer, back to my point, is being in the right place, if your boss doesn't understand that your kid has a Christmas show or whatever it is, it might be silly to them, but it might mean the world to you. And if they're not okay with you going to see it, you're in the wrong place. You need to find a different place to be.
Yeah, I think that you have to look at what you have to know yourself again, what you want, how much you're willing to sacrifice for. For example, in our business, could I, to Armand's point, I'm working on the weekends, but could I get off? Sure, but that means I would be paying another manager to be on and reflect the bottom line. But if that is a priority to me and I'm willing to do that, then the bottom line, that's fine. But I'm at my cousin's, ballet. I'm at my wife's, having dinner with my wife on a Saturday night, which is important. So it all, you really have to know yourself, and that is something that changes, as we go older. We're alumni, we go through different phases, and that don't be afraid of that changing, and re-looking at yourself and having those self conversations, those New Year's resolutions, and re-examining the past and the present, and giving yourself that really a 3, 5 year, 10-year plan. You may not stick to it, but at least there's a guidance of some sort that you do.
Laura, to touch base on something, because we're all speaking almost of like, again, at our tail end now, right? Alex is a business owner, Gina's a business owner, I from that position to now still being in the leadership. But to give you guys that perspective, I was saying is when I was working for, when I went to interview for Hub International, which is the largest broker in the country, first thing I said basically to the VP was, that I was family oriented. And every Friday I told him, hey, on Friday mornings, I take my 2-year-old, at that time, my son was 2, to get a donut before I take him to school. So every Friday I'm going to be in a little bit later. I put it out there. That could have been a red flag for them, saying, forget this guy. And he loved it. And actually we're still good friends to today. And I'm talking, that's 11 years ago or 10 years ago now, 10 years ago. But don't be afraid, like I said, to be yourself and be honest, because that was in an interview to get a job. And I made sure I mentioned that up front, because if it was a no, then I wasn't going to work there. So And that's taking it back to getting a job, needing a job, and still having that same mentality. It doesn't change from being in the leadership role, from trying to get in the door somewhere. You have to just be honest with yourself and what you want to be happy where you're going.
That's powerful. My last question to you guys is that if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, so right after graduation, what would that be?
For me, it would be to not be in such a hurry. I was in such a hurry to get a job, in such a hurry. Like I could have, like it took me 15 years to get my master's degree. If I would have just jumped in and gotten my master's degree before I was married, before I had kids, I could have, gotten that under my belt earlier. But I was just in such a hurry. So I think it's important to just stop and take a deep breath and look at all the possibilities and look at all the opportunities before you just jump in for a job.
Alex, you want to jump in? Or
So I actually missed the question. Sorry, I lost the internet here.
If you
okay.
if you could
No.
give yourself one piece of advice to your younger self coming right after graduation, what would that be?
Younger self. We're still young. Oh my goodness, we're not. We're still young. You know, we just had this at the meeting that we're not part of the Young Alumni Association. We're still young. Um, you know what? It's important to be flexible. It's important to learn yourself about what you truly want, what truly makes you happy. It's important to keep the future in mind, and that's physically, financially, health. Um, but it's important to know that to have faith that it shall pass. The good will pass, but also the bad things will pass. And with the community that we have, with the network, with the friendships, with your family, and faith, no matter what comes your way, you're going to get through it, and it's going to be okay.
That's very similar to what I would say, Alex, because I would say through school, through my whole life until I made the career change, everything had to be perfect. It was all on a schedule. It all had to be done the way I thought it had to be done. So I would say is not stress it. If something doesn't go how I planned it, it's because it wasn't supposed to. So just keep my eyes open, take the blinders off, and see, well, why didn't it? What can we do to get still to that end goal, right? The road is not straight. It's not a straight road. Everything's very windy, up, down. There's potholes. You're going to get a flat tire, and you're going to have to mow.
Murphy's Law.
And yeah, Murphy's Law, exactly. So right down that same path it's not going to be perfect, but it's perfect for you. Your outcome will still be what you meant it to be if you stick to it, stay positive, and don't stress it. Just don't stress the imperfections of life.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you look at our management restaurants, it's you never know what's going to walk through the front door. And one time a student asked me, how do we prepare for all this? What's the secret sauce and what's the code? And honestly, it's all the little things that I have learned, from FIU, being a student, and afterward the experiences, good or bad. Work cooking in an elevator shaft, to South Beach Wine Food having 12 inches of rain come down in an hour for an event. Those little things have built my book on how to solve problems. And sometimes you just go, you know what, I've done all that the best I can, and this is what it is. So don't stress, like Armand said.
Honestly, great advice. Thank you, guys. So I see that there's a question from the Q&A. It says, there are so many options and resources at FIU. So is there a specific way that FIU has really made an impact on your career and path?
I think we've all touched on it, but yeah, FIU was directly impact on my career, switching to insurance. Like I said, I started networking back. Alex Cook, who's on this call, is the one that told me to go get connected to the Alumni Association. That led me to David, led to the Broward board, led to Leandro, who led to Mike Reyes, all Panthers. And Mike and I, were partners for 3 years, and we're both still working where I'm at now at NSI because we sold the business to them. But that's completely a direct impact to, if I wasn't a Panther, I wouldn't have known Alex. He wouldn't have introduced me to, I think it was Dean Rocco. Was it Rocco? Okay. who was the circle back to the Alumni Association. Of course, I drove down there and hit some doors to try to talk to somebody. But if I didn't have FIU, there's no way that I would have been able to be where I was at, where I ended up being a business owner and getting to the point of selling a business, because I would have never met Mike, who was a fellow Panther, happened to sponsor an event at Funky Buddha, completely non-related to insurance, just Leandro's the one that made that connection. So you see all the dots connected there. It was simply all FIU. And even our third partner, Jose, who's older than us, but he was also a Panther. He was on the Treasury board in the past, and that's just a small world. But that's what's pulled it all together, is literally FIU has been.
And don't forget the love of your life.
Oh, well, we were talking business here. Well, actually, that's business too. So, yeah, I met my wife, to take it all the way back in freshman year. So that didn't hurt 20 years ago. So yeah, we bought, a few different properties. So I guess it is business related there too. This is recorded. She'll probably watch it later.
Exactly.
And FIU has done a great job of honing in on that from us to be able to share our story. They've done a write-up on us, and it's been great. So that's a big reason why I don't mind continuing to come back and helping out, besides, hearing people's stories a few years down the road. Or I've connected with people from Paul, funny enough, 7-8 years ago on LinkedIn. Something I recommend you all do is look for us. And now I see they're in positions like director of this and that, and they were just students just coming out of school or just in school. And it's really a good feeling to see that, but that all still comes back to the FIU connection, whether it's business or just personally loving to see other Panthers, grow, that I connected to.
For me as well, along the same lines, FIU is really the incredible Panthers that make it up. And, it really is a culture that FIU very intentionally creates to make sure that we, as alum and as students, we know that we have this incredible perk, right? That we have this incredible resource, but then we have to give back. So, and I think that, FIU does a really, really great job of creating that culture.
I agree. To echo both Gina and Armand. It's the network, period. My Rolodex, my top contacts, my friends for life, have all come from FIU. Friends for life. My networks that I support, I need support from, all come from FIU. But also, when we go back to FIU and speak like this to the students, it's awesome to get to see the engagement, but also to see the pulse. Yes, we are the older generation now, and to see what the younger generation, what your pulse is, what your ideas are, what's on the cutting edge. One of FIU's acronyms is being innovative, and to see what is technology in every industry, maybe law, science, hospitality with AI, and it's all FIU. To get a glimpse of it, you really come back to FIU and to just walk around campus and talk to some professors, see what they're doing. It's invigorating, to have that resource to come back to in our own community.
One final question we have from the Q&A. It goes back to mentorship. So, do you suggest a certain number of mentors? Could there be too many or too little in your little circle?
So I think too many, is you just don't have enough time. But I think that you will know, for example, you might have a mentor that will help you with one piece. You might have another mentor that might help you with something else. So, but I think that it's important to, like, I'm gonna repeat what Armand said earlier, find somebody that you really look up to, and that you want to really follow that path, and that's a great mentor. But too many, I think, is, there's just not enough hours in the day.
I agree with Gina. I mean, it's like we talked about, prioritizing. If you get off work, you have to go pick up your kids. You have to go to your BMI meeting. You have to go to the PTA meeting. You have to do your soccer. You have to go to your yoga class. And you get home, you have to Uber dinner home because there's not time to make dinner and do homework. And so it could be a little overbearing, but it's almost like a therapist. Do you need one for your life coach, or you're looking one for your career coach? I think it's always good to have, again, someone to call to find the answer, and to make sure that person's being honest with you. Because sometimes, a mentor is supposed to also tell you what you're doing wrong, and not everyone likes to hear what you're doing when we're doing something wrong. but it's got to be heard. It's got to be said. So that's a good mentor as well.
Just from my own experience, I double down on find the right person, pick that person as your mentor, and stick to their hip. That's what helped me in this industry. So I would say pick one. If it's, again, unless Gina says you need one for one piece, one for something else, but if it's like industry based, I would say pick one that's willing to help, and that's who you can learn everything you need from, that's been successful in the same position you want.
Before we wrap up, I do want to say that if anyone is interested in diving into mentorship and making those connections, you can check out mentorship.fiu.edu and you can start building those relationships. I want to say it means so much to hear these things from you guys. As a student who's graduating soon, like I feel worried and uncertain about my future. So I'm sure there's lots of people out here listening today who feel the same way and who needed to hear your advice and your stories. I just want to let you know that you guys are making a difference in many students' life with your time, and we all appreciate your honesty and your dedication to serving FIU. Your FIU. Thank you, panelists, and thank you to everyone listening and engaging with us. Today is also the second day of our Panther Alumni Week, and it's an exciting week of events for students and for alumni to connect. So make sure you check out all the events taking place on campus and online at fiualumni.com/PAW. Thank you.
I think I speak for the panelists. If anyone needs to reach out to us, I get through the Alumni Association. We're more than happy to be a mentor and to talk to anyone that needs any help.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex. Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Armand. Great to see
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Have a great day.
You
Likewise.
too.
Thank you, everyone,
Send
for
the pause up because that's what we do, right? So thank you.
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank you.